episode 2 of the Business Growth Podcast. We're here with Veronica Verhoff with EvolveUp LLC. With EvolveUp LLC, they help companies optimize how they hire, retain, and utilize their employees. So welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so, you are the founder and CEO of the company. So I'm just curious, tell us, how did you get to the point where you decided to start your own company? And what was your journey?
Well, I think if I go back on how I was raised and who I was as a kid, it plays into that today. So I don't have a trust fund. Money wasn't handed to me. You have to earn your own keep, right?
Right.
And I was the youngest of 5 kids. And there was a certain age that my parents could fund you, and then you had to figure it out. So I started young. I made sure I got good grades. I had strong work ethic, and I developed grit over time. And within that grit, when it was time to go to college, that's on you. Your parents are going to pay for that in my household. So I had to save early. And when I decided and picked my college, I actually picked it based off of how much I could afford, and then how much could I get from loans. And it was really important to me to not let my circumstances financially get in the way of what I was going to become. And so I picked a school that was far enough from my family to be away from my family, but close enough to drive. And so I stayed in Texas, and I picked something that I thought wouldn't take me a long time to pay off all the student loans, and I could work. So when I started to do that, going to college, holding jobs, working, not doing anything that was like sororities or anything really social. I was social, but just not as much as the average college kid. And I just made sure to make really, really good grades and graduate. I graduated with honors, and that was instilled into me as I started my work. And I did the same thing in corporate America. And so no one's going to hand anything to you in corporate America. I worked really hard, never was late, always on time. And I got feedback really early on that I was like way too serious. It was like, you come in, you beeline it was feedback. You beeline it to the printer machine. You print out your stuff when, people beeline it. And you don't talk to anyone. You're so serious about your job. And I'm like, I am really serious about my job. I'm really serious about all the things.
So a lot of the qualities and the habits that you developed, being the youngest of 5, and then and putting yourself through school and making sure that you're very results oriented from a young age. It sounds like too.
Yeah, and so the whole company thing was when I realized maybe corporate America wasn't for me. And why would I think that? I think I would get feedback all the time as I would climb up the ladder. I had some big goals. I wanted to do all the big things. I wanted to be C-suite by a certain age. And there was just a lot of goals that I had in mind. And as I learned all the things that I learned within workforce, from learning how to recruit, learning how to run operations, learning how to stand up programs, learning how to run global divisions inside of talent, and then learning also HR, and then how workforce all comes together, I started having conversations young about being a global director at an employer of mine. And the manager laughed at me because I was a senior manager. And that was a very pivotal moment for me. When he laughed, his feedback to me was the feedback that he thought that I needed to hear, which was, no one's going to hire you as a global director. Why would they do that? And then I explained how strategic I was, that I came in, I learned the recruiting side, I moved to the operations side. I know how do global programs across, at that time, a 35,000 employee global company, move the workforce and to help them. Like, I understand a lot about talent. And after we got off that phone, I updated my resume and I left the company. And my first job was leading a global division, and I stuck it to him. So after I learned how to do that, some of these themes kind of came along, like, hey, no, we don't think you can do that. We don't think you can do this. And I started planting a seed in my family, like, hey, I really think I want to start my own company. And at that time, I'm having kids, I'm a mom. And usually if you were to do it early, you just jump in 2 feet. But when you have all these people you have to think about, it's not just something you go do. So I kind of socialized it for a while, and stood up an LLC on the side while I was running my professional career. And then that was really hard. It was actually really hard to run a company and also work full time. It wasn't really working out very well. It was like a push and a pull. And so really I was able to make impact when I was in between jobs more than when I was on a job. And then a layoff happened when I was at Meta, and I looked at my family and I'm like, I'm all in. This side job thing that I'm doing, I'm not going to do anymore. I'm going to make this a full-time job. And when I made that decision, I rebranded my company. I changed it from Perseverance LLC, which was an advisory company that I was doing advisory work on the side and consulting work on the side. And I made it a true workforce strategy company that focuses on how do we help people really optimize how they hire, how they retain, and how they use their workforce. And how do we do that thoughtfully and meaningfully to give them a strong ROI, a true acceleration on how they do that, a true revenue impact on how they do that. And then for the last 2.5 years, I've been solely dedicated to just doing this instead of doing a full-time job and then also running a company. So
that's great. And when you made that transition, so like you rebranded and you started going out there and presenting and pitching for jobs. Like, at what point did you hit that tipping point where you're like, okay, I know this is going to work. I know, you're starting to get contracts, you're starting to get customers. How did that? At what point? How to take us through that?
I don't know. I think running a business is really hard. I think it's the hardest thing that I've done personally in my career, professionally. It's been difficult. I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to tell you about what happened before.
Okay.
I started the company full time, changed it to EvolveUp, signed a contract, started the contract. 1 month after I started, I decided to do something different with my family and go on a skiing trip. And then when I went on the skiing trip, it didn't bode very well for me. I fell one time and I broke my tibia. I dislocated my knee. I tore my ACL completely.
Oh, wow.
And they had to relocate my knee on a mountain after they cut off my pants. They had to relocate my knee. And when they relocated my knee, my meniscus flipped on top of the other meniscus and lodged my leg like this. I am a month into my new company, signed a new client.
And that sounds like more than just a fall too. I mean,
it was catastrophic.
Yes.
When I went to the ER, they pretty much wrapped me up, gave me a bunch of oxy type of drugs. And they were like, ma'am, you're going to have to go to a specialist when you get home. And they gave me a classification of I think they called it a disarranged knee, I think was the classification on the paperwork. And I asked the woman that was helping me, hey, is this really bad? And she was like, well, everybody has a different description for really bad. So I'll phrase it as your recovery is going to be really long. I just went full-time in. I just signed this client and I'm thinking, oh no.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was really interesting about that journey is how it landed. I was in physical therapy multiple times a week. I had to do a major surgery where they had to reconstruct lots of things. I had to learn how to stand again. I had to learn how to walk again. And it was painful. I couldn't even, to give you the idea, I couldn't even lift my leg like this.
Oh, wow.
The muscles were not working in my leg. I had multiple injuries. And I came up with this idea a month before that I'm going to do all of this full time, all in. And I learned really quickly that I was not going to be able to do that by myself. So pivoting was what I had to do. I hired a company in, and I think when I realized that it was going to work was actually at this site. At the end of our engagement, I was talking to the manager that we were supporting. He was the head on the hiring side. And we helped him think through how they can optimize how they hire. And we thought through also their attraction strategy. And post implementation and go live of everything that we did multiple things for them. It was this one conversation that I was like, we have something special. He said that he had some people came up to him in an executive board meeting of some sort, and they gave him feedback and they wanted to know how he did what he did. They shared with him prior to his existence, anyone that did his role could not at all do the job effectively. And from their perspective, he crushed it and landed it, and they wanted to know his secret. And you want to know what his answer was?
What?
Veronica and EvolveUp. He said, all I did was listen to Veronica and her team. I listened to EvolveUp, and I did exactly what they said. And the ROI was amazing. He shared that it would take a year for the entire staff that they have today to do the amount of work that they're now accomplishing in 6 months. So we shaved off like 50%. We doubled their production just by improving their processes, improving how they did things, improving their technology, leveraging AI where we needed. It was a 14-month project that we did all of the different things that we looked at. And his ROI was very high for him.
Oh, absolutely. Sounds like it. I mean, especially, from a career perspective, you made him look fantastic.
I was ecstatic. I want him to look great, because if he looks great, then, we look great. And the fact that he was like, well, I came in and I talked to them and then I did what they said and it works really well. That's a huge compliment because A, that means he trusted us. So we built trust. And then B, it was effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful it was effective because most of my meetings I was on, drugs as my knee was trying to overcome this huge surgery I had. And I was in agony and pain in a lot of the meetings. And some of the time I'm like, I don't know how I did that meeting, but I did. And to hear where he landed was like, wow, this is going to work. If I can do it in a wheelchair, you can see I'm not in a wheelchair anymore.
Right.
If I could do it then in a wheelchair, then imagine what I can do and the company can do and the team can do in the event that I'm not
yes,
disarranged.
Exactly. And so, are all your engagements last 12 to 14 months, with some longer term, some shorter term?
Most of our engagements are true transformative work. So, our clients come to us when they know that a lot of our companies are PE backed and they need an ROI. And a lot of the companies are in professional services. So the services they provide or the billable hours that their employee population does really drives the bottom line in EBITDA and revenue. And they need that profitable for the PE firms that typically back them. And so when they're stuck in these positions, they'll tap us on the shoulder because they want to give a strong ROI. And so they come to us because of this, or they come to us on they're running a lean team and they need to do transformative work inside of their workforce. And so they know how hard it is. For example, if you're picking up a human capital management solution and putting one in, that's a lot of work. If you're taking out your payroll system for a multi-state or a global company and you're replacing it with a more current system, that's a lot of work. So a lot of this transformative work is a heavy lift. So really people come to us because they know A, they need to show revenue, or maybe B, they need more hands on deck, or maybe C, they need an expertise. Now that AI is in all these platforms, they need to know what to look at and how it's going to solve some of their workforce problems. And so we'll come in and piece that together. So most of our engagements are heavy lift, project-based work, but we'll do short ones where we'll just come in and do an evaluation and say, hey, here's everything that we see on your hiring side on what you can do more effectively. Here's everything that you can do on the retainment side that you can do more effectively. And then this is how you can utilize your workforce. And if you're on Excel spreadsheets, we're going to say, hey, here's some tools that you can do that can help you out with that. Now, some people will go implement those themselves, and that's a short engagement. Mm-hmm. But if we're going to go implement it alongside of them and be an extension of the team, we're typically on site for at least a year if they're going to do true transformative work.
And do you have any, like you mentioned, it's more a lot of PE backed firms.
Mm-hmm.
What about M&A? I mean, do you help companies who have M&A integrate the two workforces and the systems and the processes? I mean, how does that look?
Yeah, it's messy post merger and acquisition. So yes, we do that as well. We currently have a client right now that's going through that today, and we're on the back end of all of that. And so the transformative work is merging. We're merging the payroll systems, merging the HR systems, merging the ATS systems, everything that's touching their workforce in order to run their operations. We're merging and picking and selecting what they should use. And then AI is a heavy conversation. It's an opportunity for people to level up. So after a merger, when your company's bigger, you don't have to necessarily stay on the tools that you're on. You don't have to do the easy thing. You can actually look at the tools that are available. You can up-level your employee population, pick tools that have AI in it, and then all those jobs that people were doing before, you're going to get like 25% back of time, and they're going to do something more effectively and better and easier, or more strategic, I should say, not necessarily easier.
Yeah, and that can absolutely improve ROI on the firm. And so you mentioned everybody's talking about AI, and there's lots of concerns out there around AI, like completely replacing people. You know, what are you seeing? I mean, you see, because you're implementing it on large companies. Are you seeing some of that, or is it more of a kind of a force multiplier?
So we did an analysis recently, and we were showing inside of how they hire, how they retain, and how they use their workforce, all the people that touch it, that we could give 25% of the time back to the employee population so they could do more strategic work. And we were very meticulous about that. And how we showed that is we looked at all the different manual work that people do.
Mhm.
And then as we look at the manual work, we look at how much time it takes them to do that. And the amount of hours that people can spend doing manual work or administrative work is beyond me. But as these companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, it's not something they're necessarily paying attention to, and they don't realize the amount of money they're spending that they could honestly invest it differently,
Mhm.
and the amount of productivity they could get. To answer your question, if someone was 100% administrative and everything a technology could do, yes, that one individual could be replaced. That's completely true. But how often I come across that is rare. Most of the time, it's part of their job. And then they get to that project that they couldn't get to. And it's truly about leveling them up. And so we'll tell people, hey, after you do this, what are you going to do with that 25% of time? What is the learning and development programs you're going to put in place? What is the new role responsibilities that you want? You got to think about it strategically. What are the new KPIs if it's a sales team? What are the new KPIs you want to put in place, or the new numbers you want to place for a recruiting team? What is the new headcount you need to put in place? And what do you want your future to look like? Or do you want to hold this employee population, keep growing, have the operation support your growth, and really let the tools, and then kind of come back to the leadership team and figure out what your new goals are for the year, because you have so much time back into your employee population. So to answer your question, no, I don't think it's going to replace humans, at least not for today. Could it? I mean, I don't know what AI is going to be, 10 years from now. But what I can say is it automates things that should be automated. It reduces redundant work. There's generative AI that can create emails, read resumes, read performance reviews, summarize that. There's just a lot of things that it can do to help the workforce, that it is in the workforce best interest to use it. I don't think it's going to replace them. I think you need a human involved in it.
Yeah, and it seems like like there's everybody's got a part of their daily job that they're like, man, if I gotta have to deal with this again. Whereas if you could just automate some of that or use AI, you'd be freed up to really focus on that high value project or the work you really enjoy, other than the administrative kind of redundant kind of grind part of your job, right?
And this is in every facet. This is on your customer success side, when they're dealing with that. This is on the employee benefit side, where employees are asking different HR folks about benefits when a bot can answer that. This is on externally on your career site.
Mm-hmm.
If someone were to go and be interested in your company and joining your company, somebody doesn't have to respond. It can be a bot to match them to a job and apply on their behalf.
Well, I'm sure everybody would be glad to hear that, because I mean, you just kind of, the stories about AI, in the media you read, a lot of it's hype, a lot of it's for clicks and eyeballs and what have you. So it's good to hear that from somebody who's actually implementing it, how it's really helping, with the, again, unlocking their potential and freeing them up and increasing ROI on the company's workforce.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. And so in terms of like a case study, would love to hear like how maybe you went into a company and help them use AI and get everything aligned to improve their work output.
Yeah. So one of our former clients was on an older system, a legacy system, and that legacy system required a lot of reading and a lot of things outside of the tool. So when tools don't speak together and they're not integrated, people have to make up processes. And it could look like an email back and forth that an automation can do.
Mm-hmm.
It could look like reading resumes instead of a bot reading them and matching them. And then also it could look like distributed workforce in multiple systems instead of one centralized system. So if I think through different case studies, the one that comes to mind is I joined as a consultant, and my team joined, and we were running 3 projects simultaneously. We were running an HR focus project, a request for proposal to figure out how to optimize their environment based off of the gaps that they had. And then we had a reconfiguration project, meaning they already had tools in their environment and they already did an implementation and went very, very badly, and nothing was working. It was actually bottlenecking their workforce. It wasn't actually helping their workforce. So when you do these kinds of things, you have to think through it strategically. You have to take your time. It's no easy task to replace a tool and move from one tool to another tool when there are about 2,000 people. So there are about 2,000 people distributed across the world. And so you have to be very thoughtful about that. So when we came in and we looked at what APAC was doing, Asia Pacific was doing, what the employee population was doing in EMEA, and what the employee population was doing in the United States, we realized all our processes were very different for the same thing. So confining that and making sure it's very streamlined and very consistent. And then we looked at what tools they were all using. They weren't using the same tools. So their employee population was sitting everywhere. There was nothing centralized. So if you wanted to go find an employee record, it's over here, or maybe it's over here. And so when you're looking at everything, they have it. You just have to go find it. And just by simply looking at how they're doing it, fixing the process, and then making a recommendation to come onto one system, we saw how long it took them to just onboard someone. And they're in professional services, so they need to onboard very quickly, and then they need to generate revenue. We realized that we could get their workforce generating revenue at least 2 weeks faster, and we quantified that. They were sitting on $11 million of revenue just sitting there because of the way that they were set up, that they could be delivering against on their client sites. And this wasn't a huge company. It was maybe 130 million, around that. So 11 million for 130 million is a lot of money. And it's because they set up APAC different than EMEA different than the United States. And so when you look at how they did that all, making those recommendations and showing them you're sitting on 11 million that you could have people out working at your client sites was just like a very moving moment.
Absolutely.
I think that is when I realized, wow, we have more than just accelerating how people hire. We have more than just retaining employee population longer. We have more than getting them productive. We can give people a lot of money back, and then they can reinvest that in their company and continue to grow and scale, which is really important for mid-level market if they want to take more of the market over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like there's just kind of like sleeping dragons, so to speak, in so many different departments where, once you kind of shine the light on it and are able to kind of get everything coordinated, it just all of a sudden it'll spring forth. Right. I mean, and in the competitive world that we're in, I mean, it's almost imperative to have somebody like you come in and like put eyes on it and help them do this. And, how do they typically find you? How do your clients typically find you?
We're heavy referrals based. Most of the time it's something like a conversation, or it's just a pain where someone's talking about a pain like, hey, one of our clients found us because they were talking to a neighbor on their street, and they were describing on how their clients weren't happy on the work they were delivering with their employee population they were putting there. They were complaining about how long it was taking them to service those projects and how long it was taking them to actually place the individuals on site. And they're like, oh yeah, I know a company that actually focuses on that aspect. It's a workforce consulting company. You should call her. And they were in Atlanta having a conversation, and I live in Austin, Texas. And it's literally a conversation on a street with a neighbor. And then before I know it, I'm talking to the CFO, CEO, and the chief people officer on all the workforce problems they're having as they're trying to scale in their market. So it's just funny that a conversation in Atlanta was happening on a street, and that's
on a cul-de-sac, and it turned into a client.
It turned into a client. So it's really like conversations like this, just getting our name out there, letting them know what we do, telling them about the successes, and most importantly, just telling them about the pain that people feel. And it's no fun going into work and feeling overwhelmed because your staff of your department is buried and they're miserable. How do you unbury them? Or you're about to go through this merger and it's going to be stressful putting these companies together. Or you have a new PE firm that has acquired you and you need more revenue and more ROI to put them in a better position. And so all of these different things create pain. And when you say, okay, I'm going to do transformative work, people don't usually line up and say, oh, let me help you with that transformation, because it's a heavy lift.
Mm-hmm.
And so really it's going in and really saying, okay, here are your gaps. If you're going to do this, let's think about it this way strategically so that by the time you're done, you feel really good about it. And it's not one of those things where you're getting a phone call after you go live with your transformative work and the phone call is nothing's working, which is the calls that we get nothing's working. We went live. Nothing's talking to each other. Our finance system isn't talking to our HCM. Our HCM isn't talking to our ATS. It's not talking to our payroll. And like our whole back office is falling apart and we can't do that. Right. So you just don't want to go live with that. So.
Right. And so it says, it sounds like it's more, a lot of it is more reactive, people reaching out to you after the fact. I mean, are there companies that are finding you more and more often, like ahead of time, coming to you, like, we're about to do this. We want to include you, we want to involve you. And if they do, like, how much faster can you make it happen for them versus trying to pick up the pieces after the fact?
So 80, maybe 75% of our work is reactive, meaning there's pain. When people usually know that there's pain is the scaling, the merging, it creates dysfunction. We come in the middle of dysfunction and like make the chaos go away. That's pretty much what we do. Now, to answer your question, do we have people come before the fact? Absolutely. We are currently engaged on an engagement of taking people off worksheets, like spreadsheets, Google Sheets, and putting systems in place as they scale. So as people start getting to the hundreds, they should start kind of retiring some of those spreadsheets that they started their 10-person company on, their 15-person company on. And then when they start getting to the hundreds, they actually start really purchasing tools. I say it's best to do it a little bit earlier than hundreds, but we have a client that's in the hundreds. And for the first time, they're going to be getting a true HCM tool. They're going to be up-leveling their payroll system. They're going to make sure it's integrated. And we're looking at it at a 10-foot view. And because they're in professional services, we've already talked to them about resource allocation, making sure they utilize their workforce, realize the amount of money that they need to realize on the different projects. How are they doing that? We've talked to them about their workforce strategy holistically. Where do they want to be in a certain amount of years? We know what revenue they're at. We know what revenue they want to be. So when we pick the system, we're actually building not just for today, but for the future. And they have no systems in place. So they found out about us through a referral. A former CEO that worked for us referred us into this company. And they're starting early and they're being very thoughtful about it, which is great because as they think about it, we've had conversations about mergers, acquisitions. What is their plan? Are they going to exit? Are they looking to acquire? And since we have a very good idea of the profile, we know what to pick if they do an acquisition. We know how to scale that. We know if they come from a United States-based company to a global company, what to look for and how to advise them on that.
So you can advise them so would the choices for somebody who's planning to exit be different than someone who's planning to scale?
Yeah, very different. Someone who's planning to exit, they need something just for that point of time for that year. And they just need to know where they're going. If they're going to stay with the company for a long duration of time and they plan on growing from a national company to an international company, that's a whole different conversation. And so we need to know that. And then if they're under a PE firm, how long is that PE firm looking to then sell that company for a profit typically, right? So if they're only going to hold on to it for 5 years, we're going to solve 3 to 5 years of their problems so that the other firm can then figure out what they want to do. So we'll do it based off of what are your true problems today? Where do you want to go? Why? And then we piece that all together. So it's not just looking in, oh, this is what you have, let's fix it. It's where are you going? Because we need to pick the systems that are going to get you there and beyond if you're going to go somewhere beyond.
It seems like they would almost want to have you as part of their long-term strategic planning process coming in, year after year to get your input on where to go.
Companies expand and contract. You just want to have systems and processes that it can expand and contract with you. And it is common that a workforce will eventually grow out of a tool or technology will change so rapidly that things become out of date. And so these contracts that you sign, you might be signing a 3-year contract, and that's probably a smart thing because 3 years from now, we don't know where we're going to be at, how rapidly things are. So every single time a sunset date hits, it is a great time that a year before that sunset date to call a company like myself to say, hey, can you take a look under the hood? This is what I've heard for the technology. This is where we're going. Is this still the right fit for us? Because these systems evolve. Now, technology companies are smart. They'll make sure to do added features in. They'll make sure to run beta programs. And as long as they're pacing well with the market, a lot of the time you can stay on some of these mature systems because they know what they're doing. And so they'll scale with you. The times that we'll get calls is maybe if a system is falling behind in the market and they're not pacing well with the other technology and it's starting to make sense to leave that. But what we try to do is pick the systems that are scaling well and we'll get them there to where we don't have to get that call.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And then just the work that you're doing constantly on this, you're always going to be on the cutting edge
Mm-hmm.
and can give them, great advice on what to look at least,
Mm-hmm.
and which companies, which softwares to really highlight, and maybe some to stay away from. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's the hope, to stay on top of it,
absolutely.
but it's a competitive market out there. Everyone's trying to research and learn and,
Mhm.
but we want to be on the cusp of it. And I would say I'm fairly confident. I'd probably say like 90% confident. We're pretty much up there. I would think.
And do you have software companies coming to you for kind of for feedback and to help them know where to go and where they can improve?
Regularly. So a lot of our partnerships are with technology companies, whether it's a talent intelligence tool, um, a, honestly, a personality assessment, which we put and integrate in. And it's not your stereotypical personality assessments by any means. These are AI smart, sophisticated tools that can place individuals to jobs that the profile is signaling they will be successful. So these tools are smart. Applicant tracking system companies that we work with, HCM, HRIS companies. We have recently expanded out to professional service automation tools because the majority of our book of business is within professional services. So it makes a lot of sense to put them in our book of business. Payroll systems. So if you think about workforce,
Mhm.
all those different vendors we talk to.
That's fantastic. I mean, seems like you're just right at that nexus where all of this is coming together and really starting to take off, and it's become more and more important for your clients to have somebody to advise them on this.
Yeah, it's fun. It's becoming more and more of a need just because of the transformation the world is making within AI. It's directly impacting multiple platforms. And because it's directly impacting multiple platforms, the buzz on all the different departments a company can utilize it in, it's becoming more and more evident. And people realize, oh, wait, I can get a lot more work done if I have some slight differences than what I have today. So it's very helpful.
And is there any difference between like the work you do for a privately held company versus a public company? Are there any nuances to between the two that drive how you work with them or the solutions you're providing?
Every company I work with, it's always going to start off their gaps. And every client is different. I can't tell you one client, no client's the same. It's not. The business problems are different. Now, there could be some themes that we may see, but because we go in and go so granular, whether it's public, private, we go in so granularly, what we pick is tailored towards them. We're on the client side. So the products they get, you can call the client before, they didn't get those products. Call the client before that, they didn't get those products. The way we solve their problems is based off of their ecosystem today and the ecosystem of where they're going. And so all of our clients, yes, they're all different, but they're all different not because of necessarily where they sit. It's the pain on which we're looking at
Mhm.
and how we're going to solve that pain. And everybody's pain inside of companies is slightly different within workforce. They might be good at one thing, but they might not be good at another thing. And then we'll solve for the not good thing, and then we'll just bring in what they're good at and put it in.
And so, if you just take us like through, like a company that is hiring you for the full scope of work, not only the initial analysis, but also implementation. Like, how long does the initial scope of work, the evaluation and analysis take as far as implementation and how you just take us through the whole process.
So right in the beginning, we'll figure out a discovery conversation to figure out what is it that they're solving for and why. And then to figure out if it makes sense for us to start where they want to start. Because some of the time we actually might need to start somewhere different. For the projects, if it's just a small piece of it. So let's just say you're just looking at hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So hiring, you really have your talent intelligence side, your talent branding side, your employment branding. And then you really have your CRMs, your applicant tracking system. So you just have this one ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just doing a subset, that project's pretty quick. It's a handful of weeks that we'd run an evaluation. And then after we do the evaluation, we go straight into recommendations. And if they want to move forward on recommendations, we usually launch some type of RFP if they want to do a transformation project with technology. And an RFP is a request for proposal.
Mm-hmm.
We'll run that for a handful of weeks. We figure out all the data that we need, do all the requirements gathering. We work with all the vendors, and we actually do the selection process. And we tell them who they should look at and why, based off of their gaps from the analysis. Then after we do that, we go straight into, after selection, we have them select, we'll do negotiation if they want us to do negotiation for them. And then we go straight into the project team. Our projects teams are always different per site. It's based off of the pain of that client site. And so if there's a certain kind of skill that they need for these projects on the client side, we make sure that skill is there. And so we actually will change out our staff per site to just make sure that they have the right person. We'll launch the project within itself, depending upon how complex it is, could be 3 to 6 months, or we could be a 12-month project. Now, if it's just on the front end, a little quick talent acquisition assessment on that end, we're talking soup to nuts, end to end, 12-ish months at max, I would think. Now, when we're doing very full, complex workforce strategy, that's different. That's going to be probably 18 months because we're dealing with multiple systems, multiple integration points. We're dealing with AI for different personas, AI for hiring managers, AI for business units. We're dealing with technology that's managing the entire workforce, technology that's doing the hiring, technology that's touching the employee population. And then if we're even doing benefits in there, we might be talking about bots that are answering questions on behalf of an HR generalist instead of a human to the employees themselves. So these projects can go over multi-years depending upon how complex they are. But if it's just a one subset within the entire workforce, those could be a short few months.
And then as far as you mentioned personas, how would you develop the personas for each different business unit?
Personas for each different business unit.
You mentioned like sales or HR or benefits. Or did I cue in the wrong?
Yeah. So each persona that I'm referring to, no. Each persona that I'm referring to is who is using the tool.
Okay.
That experience will dictate what that AI agent's doing. So the way an AI agent would work with a recruiter would be different than the way an AI agent would be for an employee, and an AI agent that would be for an HR staff member versus an AI agent for a salesperson. So the personas are really important to know, like, what are you solving for? What are your pains? Because you implement these technologies, that persona and the way they use them is going to be different for each person within a company. And so that's what I mean by persona.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yes. Good. And so that's, just what you described, that entire process, you really can provide beginning to end, complete turnkey solutions for these companies.
Based off of pain, we can. And it's hard. This meeting that I got off the other day, the fear of the employee population to do this is the fear of the picking up one system, moving everything on the other system, and the downward impact. They're in multiple states. They're super scared about that. But there was also a lot of opportunity on there. So they got on this call and you could just see the fear. And we talked through the fear, what they were worried about. We talked through how, if it's not at end of a quarter, end of the year, how that could negatively impact the business. If we can't, what if they're not good at certain things within taxes? They also have an office in California, which is totally different compliance and regulation laws than here in Texas and the other states. Yes. And so there's all this concern. This is not easy. And so to go in there and to watch the fear, and then by the end of the call, watch the fear slowly go down is very moving. Because by the time we got off this call, people are talking about, well, what are all the things that we can fix? Well, maybe we change the way we do payroll. Because right now, the way that we do payroll, it's set on this schedule. And I start thinking through an easier schedule. Hey, maybe we should do it every other week. And then that's an entirely different conversation. And, the head of the department was like, that's brilliant. We could change management of that, release out a communication out to the employee population. I actually think the employees would like that. So you go from fear to how can we do this differently and how can we do it better? And then when your clients lean into, oh, I was thinking about it one way, but now I'm over here thinking about an entirely different way, and it's going to help the business a lot and honestly help the employee population. Happy employees means better work, means more ROI, means more revenue. There's all these downward impacts. And to sign off that call and hear the enthusiasm is great.
Yeah, that morale and buy-in. It definitely. You could. I'm sure it's gratifying for you.
Yes.
As leading the call, and also the people who, the executives who made the decision to work with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
It's
fantastic.
one of those calls you get off and you're like, yes, they get it. We don't have to be afraid. Like, we can do this really heavy work and do it together
Mm-hmm.
and, cry together, whatever it is that you have to do when it's a lot of work. And then at the end, be joyful, right?
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, if somebody wanted to contact you,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
My info at evolveup.io is the general inbox that everybody can just push to. It gets to a few of us. And so that's one way. Another way is I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Veronica Verhoff is my name. It's Verver. You can't forget it. People are like, oh, it's Verver. Veronica Verhoff. Yeah. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And then also we have a website. It's evolveup.io as well, that you can visit us there. So multiple ways to get a hold of us.
So we're going to do a fun exercise on a would you rather question. So would you rather speak every language in the world or play every musical instrument?
I once tried to do a musical instrument, did not go well. But ahora estoy estudiando español ahora with my AI bot. So I am studying Spanish right now with an app, with an AI bot. So I feel like I would definitely like to learn a bunch of languages using AI bots.
There you go. You can put it to use. You can use
it would be very helpful.
Yeah.
But as far as instruments, if I could do it, I don't know. I always really liked the piano. I really did. But I was never good at it. I tried.
Yeah.
A for effort.
Yeah.
But I'm not a musical kind of gal.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'd love to be able to play every instrument, but just my brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And then you watch somebody who's truly gifted just pick up anything and play any instrument. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and then I think it's amazing. I have this brother-in-law that he'll play the guitar and he'll sing, and I just I'm so moved by it.
Mm-hmm.
But you put that in front of me, and I'm going to sound like a cat screeching. I just don't have that gift to sing, and definitely don't have the gift to play. But I enjoy it, observing it, listening to it, and watching.
Yeah, being part of it. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, fantastic. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's been great hearing about your business and your journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
Thank you very much. So now we're signing off on the second episode of the Business Growth Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully you'll come back and watch episode 3. Thanks again.